Welcome to the Connected Conversation with Brett Hill, a well-known mindfulness and somatic coach and coach trainer, as he demonstrates the power of mindful communication to change your life, work, and the world. Disconnected is the new normal. People are feeling overdriven, overwhelmed, and disconnected from meaningful conversations. But it doesn't have to be that way. Step into a life that works for you. Flourish and give voice to your natural creativity and purpose as you learn how to connect deeply and authentically with yourself, others, and the world. The Connected Conversation with Brett Hill starts now.
Welcome to the very first episode of the Connected Conversation. My name is Brett Hill, and I'm a somatic mindful coach and coach trainer. So I teach coaches, and I also do one-on-one work with people to help people connect to what's really true for them, get grounded in their own authenticity and authority, and learn to live and speak and act in the world from that place. We're going to spend a lot of time on this show talking about how to connect to deeper meaning, to other people, to what's true for you and your mission in the world. Do you even have a feeling of like, hey, this is what I'm about and how I manifest that in the world? And the reason this is so important is because so many people these days are feeling disconnected from the very things that empower us and give us the authority. I use that word authority in not the traditional like authority one over another, but I'm talking about authority from the point of view of having authority over your own life and boundaries and the capacity to say yes to things that are healthy for you. And that becomes really, really hard to do in this world that we're living in, which is encouraging us to be disconnected as a normal state. And so I'm going to talk in this session quite a bit about that because it's so pervasive. And it's a really, really important topic. So I'm going to be spending some time in this initial session. But before we get started, I want to just invite you into being here. And what I mean by that is taking a moment to transition. So whatever it is that you're doing, whether you're exercising or listening to this while you're doing something else, or just in a contemplative place or going for a walk, whatever that is, I'm going to ask you to take a moment and just use your eyes and your ears and your senses and connect to what is your experience now? What is your experience now? What's it like for you to be in wherever you are, right here, right now? Just really sample that. And for some people, that's a little bit challenging because it might not be that pleasant inside. And if that's so, you just notice that and just go, yeah, okay, that's not great. Or you might go, wow, I have a great view out the window. I just didn't see it there before. Just notice that. So whatever is true, notice that and just name it. And that's the beginning of learning to be present with your body in a way where you're accepting the experience that you have. Now, I want to talk about that word accepting because sometimes people kind of go, well, I don't want to accept the fact that I feel terrible, or I don't want to accept the fact that people are being mean to me. And I want to say, I'm using the word accepting meaning letting what is true be true. And let me explain what I mean. If you were stuck at the side of the road with a flat tire, when I use the word accepting, I don't mean, oh, I have a flat tire and that's just the way it is. And I'm just going to be okay with that because, that's the way you live in the world when you're trying to be present. You just accept the fact that that's true. And hey, nothing I can do about it. But that's not so, right? There is something you can do about it. And who wants to be stuck at the side of the road with a flat tire? Nobody. The difference is accepting your circumstances, saying, oh, here's the fact. I have a flat tire. Seems like I ought to change it, versus, oh my God, my tire is flat. It's ruined my day. I'm not going to be able to do XYZ. This is a horrible experience. I just can't stand. Those are completely different experiences. In one case, someone's saying, yep, it's a fact. I've got a flat tire. It's not great, and it has impacts in my world. Accepting the truth of it versus railing against the fact that it's true, right? Oh, this shouldn't be so. And if you're familiar with Eckhart Tolle's work, what he would be talking about is wishing for a world that isn't happening, right? And a lot of us, that's the state that we're in a lot of the time. We're wishing for a world that isn't here right now. We're wishing, oh, I wish they hadn't said that. I wish I'd gotten that. I wish this didn't happen. And those are normal and natural sort of things to wish for. And of course, we want what's better for us, or what we think would be better for us. Of course, we want better circumstances. But the path to better starts with accepting what is so. It is so that I have this flat tire. Or maybe another example I use sometimes is that of a broken leg. Someone, maybe you're in a wreck, or someone's negligence causes you to have an injury. And that just becomes a fact of your life, that, oh, I've got a broken leg. And I can walk around being in connection with my anger and in the injustice of it. Remember, this is the connected conversation. That's what this whole series is about, the connecting. So when I'm walking around connected to the fact that this shouldn't have happened, I should be having a different life. And that's what I'm connected to when I walk around and engage in the world. Then how does that manifest when you interact with people? How does that manifest when you create organizations, when you interact with the world in a way that you're not seeing what's right in front of you? Instead, you're connected to an idea of what you wish was so. That changes how we interact with people. And so we start with, what's true for me now? How do I, what is my actual experience of this moment? And then we also extend that a little bit by giving words to it. Oh, I'm feeling tense. I'm feeling love. I'm feeling anger, stress. I'm feeling pain. Whatever it is, you simply name it and let it be, like either the flat tire, the beautiful sunset, or whatever it is that's happening, and you connect to the truth of it. So this is a very, very powerful orientation to how you can engage. So that's a grounding, if you will, in a whole technique that I call body sensing. And so it's like you simply begin to take breaths and notice, what is my experience? Where am I feeling any kind of tension or sensations? And if you'll think about it, if you've ever taken any kind of mindfulness training or meditation training, almost all of them start with some kind of a body-based sensation, like breathing, taking in a breath, and they'll say, notice your breath, notice your breath. Now, why is that? Why is breath? Or in other situations, it might be noticing, like the tip of your nose is one, like breathing in and noticing some location in your body. It's because there's another rule or guideline, if you want to call it that, and it's that the body is always in the moment. This is another really powerful guideline that you can use, a practice, that if you're stressing or you're worried and you're feeling reactive, touch base with your what I call somatic. That's the word somatic, which means connecting to your senses, right? Your body experience, because that's always in the moment. There's no story around it, right? It's kind of like, let me give you an example. Like, let's say I'm noticing I've got tension in my shoulder. So take a breath, paying attention to my body. Oh, I've got some tension in my shoulder. That's not like, well, if I hadn't lifted that box the other day because somebody wanted me to move this thing the other day and they should have been able to do it themselves. And I volunteered, and that's what I get for trying to be helpful. That's the story, right? Being connected to that story is different than simply noticing I've got a tension in my shoulder. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the story, but I'm saying if I just stay with the tension in my shoulder, I'll have a better result than I will if I get into the injustice of the situation by going through the thought loop in my head about how that happened to me. So simply staying in connection with the shoulder and paying attention and breathing, paying attention to how you, and by extension, using that same thing in interaction with people, because this is the connected conversation, right? So what's going on in your body while you're talking to other people, right? This is so important. What are you noticing about your experience of communicating with others? Someone says, you know, I really like the way you're dressing. How does that feel to you somatically? There's so much more about this that we can talk about in terms of the way that you can navigate how to connect with people in a way that feels so rich and deep with just almost anyone. And obviously there are characters that you probably don't want to be in a rich deep connection with, but there's still a way that you can hold space, to use a bigger term for them, that isn't, how should I say, antagonistic. And if it is, then you simply notice that and say, oh yeah, that's the feeling that I'm having too. And when you approach conversation from this more embodied place, it changes the conversation and opens the door to a rich experience of connection that simply isn't there otherwise. And when you are able to bring the skills to your world of having this kind of a conversation, where you're like very much able to get connected to people because you wish to, because you have the skills to, then your life becomes a much richer place to be. You are able to create extraordinary moments out of ordinary conversations. And that really is one of the gifts of spending some time learning about how to create connected conversations with the people that you encounter, the people in your world, and the people everywhere that you meet. It's so amazingly transformative that I'm doing a podcast about it. And I hope that you'll come back every 2 weeks as we explore more and more territory around the connected conversation, because it's really an amazing thing. So if you want to ask questions, connect with my website, theconnectedconversation.com, and we can see how things go from there. We're going to take a break now, and we'll be back in a little bit. Hello, and welcome back to the Connected Conversation. My name is Brett Hill. I'm a mindful somatic coach and coach trainer, and we are talking today about how to bring more connection into your world, because we live in a world that is inviting us to live in a disconnected place. And you can spend your whole life walking around pretty disconnected from who you really are and the way you would like to be in the world. And the world, and I say the world in a generic way, meaning you're not going to get a lot of support for kind of swimming upstream against the torrent of social media and and it's doom scrolling, and oh my God, there's so much to do, and how do I manage all this technology, and what about the taxes, and what about the repairs on where I'm living and getting a job? There's so much to manage. We live in such a chaotic world that maybe you've heard the term VUCA. We live in VUCA times. That's, volatile, uncertainty, chaotic, and ambiguous, right? I love that phrase. In fact, I just did a webinar yesterday where 90 people signed up for, mindful somatic skills for these VUCA times, focused on helping coaches learn how to help people connect to do the kind of things I'm talking about here in the show, connect to their authentic self. And you'll see a lot of that, in coaches and coaching. How do you connect to your authentic self? And it's magnificent work. My particular focus is kind of what I call cutting through the noise. And it's like helping people get to a situation, a place where they can land in their experience of now, rather than figure out the storyline, right? Because you'll go to some people, some coaches or therapists even, oh my God, I've been in a lot of bad therapists in the world. There's some great ones, I want to be clear, who have and actually transformed my life magnificently. And those were the somatic-based coaches in the world of Hakomi and some other ones. Hakomi is the name of a somatic mindfulness-based coaching approach. And when I encountered that, it really rocked my world. I can tell you a little story about how I learned the power of somatics. I was, oh my God, I was a vice president of a software organization. Actually, believe it or not, even though I'm a mindful somatic coach, I'm actually a technologist, and I worked for Microsoft for many years and had a job speaking at conferences all around the world on technology. And it was a really great career that I had, and a ton of fun. And so before I had joined Microsoft, I was working for a company that made banking software. And I had this girlfriend at the time, and I was just crazy about this girl. And I was really, what I would say, all in. I was really all in on this relationship. And then one day we were having dinner, and she said, no, I want to end this. And I was like, wait, what? And I didn't see it coming. I had no idea this was happening. I'm like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. This is the best thing ever. But she was saying so long. So we were clearly in different places, right? Didn't see it. I was blindsided. Well, this completely rocked my world. And I was really, really emotionally blown apart, literally. And I was non-functional after that. And it was irrational how non-functional I was. I mean, we're talking about when you lose the love of your life, you're going to go into this big heartbreak, and yeah, you're going to be hurt. But I was completely dysfunctional. I even lost my job. I was so out of it. So I was sitting in my room, kind of waking up in this horrible state every day and going to bed in this horrible state every day. I'm laughing now, but it wasn't funny at the time. But one day I literally woke up and said, you know what? I need professional help. I've got to get some help. And so I looked up and, where can I find a therapist nearby? And I'd never been to a therapist. I had no idea what it was about. And I found this guy nearby, and I just kind of picked him out of the air and went over and sat down and started talking about my situation, and stuff is coming up. And as I'm doing it, and if you're listening, you can't see what I'm doing. I'm actually making a fist with my hand, kind of squeezing it, and then releasing it a little. And I was saying, this relationship really surprised me. I'm making a fist with my hand and compressing it over and over again. And I had my fist down by my stomach, and he said, let me just ask you, what's going on with your fist, with your hand? And I thought, well, I don't know. I'm in this big mess. I'm in a conundrum. I lost my job. I lost my girlfriend. My life is terrible. And he said, yes, that's also. But what's going on with what's happening with why are you making this fist? I'm going, I don't know. He says, well, let's just slow everything way down and just really sense into this and see if there's something there. Now, to be honest, I hadn't just walked in off the street. I had actually been a meditation instructor before then. And so the notion of going inside and kind of hanging out with my senses was not something that was uncommon to me, because I founded the Quest Meditation Institute in Dallas years ago and taught people meditation. So it was not that big of a leap for me to kind of go inside. But what was a big leap for me was to inquire into what was happening with this nonverbal expression. And so that opened a door for me, because suddenly I'm turning inside and my senses go to, well, what is this about? And then he asked me a really key question. He said, if your fist could say something, what would it be saying? And I got connected to the fact that I had a lot of anger. And yeah, my heart was broken, but there was a lot of anger in this as well. And so I began to explore what that was about. And it opened up this whole boatload of unacknowledged stuff I was disconnected from, anger from my past, that was kind of piling on to this moment. And so what I mean by that is like, yeah, so here's an event that's truly bad emotionally for me. And the door began to open a little bit towards having this deep emotions, and the whole well of backed up experience and expression was trying to find its way out through this opening in the crack in the dam. And suddenly the water starts to flood. And there was all this pressure I was feeling to, like, this emotional disaster I was having was not just the relationship, it was all this other stuff too, kind of piling on. And the moment I realized that, my healing truly began, because I began to realize this isn't just about the relationship, it's about all the other times that I've been blindsided and not understood what was going on and felt like my trust was undermined. And so that was, and all of that happened because this guy said, what is happening with your fist? This subconscious, unconscious thing that was happening, this body-based movement. That opened me up to this whole world. And then later after the session, I said, so what is that? What is that about? And how did you learn to do that? And he says, oh, well, I learned this technique here. And I studied it with these people. And I said, well, I have to know everything there is to know about that, because I was a technologist, right? So I'd really like to understand how things work. I like to know what's underneath. How are these things put together? And I'd had a degree in interpersonal communication and had studied psychology, and I was very interested in how all this was put together. But this whole world of body awareness was new. And this was, like in the mid 90s. So this was very new at the time. So consequently, that started me on a path of deeply exploring what is this about, this whole world of mindful awareness of our body experience, and being able to give voice to what the content of the subconscious is. Ron Kurtz, the founder of Hakomi, would say, exploring the contents of the subconscious. And so as a coach and as a human being in relationship and talking to people, I'm tracking, paying attention to what is showing up in the way that people manifest non-verbally and verbally, and connecting to that. Even if they don't know, it's like I'm noticing the full expression of how are people showing up. And I want to invite you to consider that you are showing up all the time the way you are, whoever you are, whatever's on your mind. When you walk into a room, when you walk into any kind of conversation, the whole of you is showing up. You might think, well, I don't have to say anything, so no one would know anything about me. The fact that you're not saying anything speaks volumes, right? So another one of my backgrounds is in group leadership training. I took matrix leadership training from Amin and Olam, the founder of it. It was amazing, amazing work. And one of the things I learned in that is that there's no hiding. You can't hide who you are from someone who's really paying attention. The fact that someone's in a group and they're sitting back and not saying anything, they might think that they're not participating, but they're having a huge influence on everything. And when you know that, you can begin to, when you know that you're having an influence, regardless of what you're doing, that's the beginning of ownership of your space in the world, right? What kind of an influence are you having on the things around you? And is it the one that you want? Is it the kind that you want? I have another story to tell about that. But I won't have time to do that right this minute, but I will in a moment. So I just want to put a placeholder here for the conversation around taking responsibility for how you show up. And this is a big part of the connected conversation. It's about I want to be someone who facilitates connection and opens and greets people in a way where I can make it easy for them to connect, right? That's the way I want to show up. I want to show up in a way where I'm inviting connection where it makes sense. Now, there's some systems that I call them systems organized within people that you don't want to connect to, right? There's toxic systems out there. In that case, you want to be very, very clear that I am not connecting to that. And we'll talk a lot more about boundaries and also claiming your space when we get back from this break. And so you're listening to Brett Hill with the Connected Conversation. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Connected Conversation. My name is Brett Hill. I'm a somatic mindful coach or mindful somatic coach, depending on how you want to say it, and coach trainer. So I teach other coaches as well. And we are talking about how to create connections in ways that are deeply satisfying and nourishing and enriching for everybody involved. There's a whole giant skill set around this, and it can be pretty simple in a lot of ways. As simply, if you just want to boil it down to, if you can walk around in a state of loving presence, everyone's going to want to talk to you, and they're going to find it nice, right? So you can kind of cut to the chase, if you will, through a whole lot of technique and philosophy and tactical strategy around when they say this, you do that, and when I feel this, you do that, which is great to have. And I love going into that kind of detail because I'm like, if you heard the previous, I'm a technologist and I love the structure and the architecture and the psychology and the neurology and all of that really gets me lit up. But really, in the end, it really gets down to simply being in a place where you can be present for other people and for yourself. That's the key part, this dual awareness. A lot of people think that in order to be, kind of a loving presence in the world, it's all about others. But I'm saying, yes, it is about others, but it's also you are in the mix, and you have to honor your own participation and your own part in the dialogue and in the conversation. And if you don't do that, you're kind of going to be in trouble, and you're going to wonder about, why is everybody always walking over me? And why am I feeling like I'm the one who's carrying the burden? All of those kinds of things are signs that there's not a good boundary there in terms of you owning your own space. So before the break, we were talking a little bit about that in terms of claiming your space and being in the wholeness of who you are in such a way that you can know where that boundary is. And so you don't overgive, and you don't under-receive. And that's really the balance of it, right? It's really important to kind of have a sense of, where can I say yes, where can I say no, and feel good about it. Sometimes we wind up in situations where we aren't doing what other people want, and we feel really bad about it because we want people to like us, because that's what we're connected to. If you get connected to, I want people to like me, who doesn't, right? But if that's what you're connected to in the moment, then you're maybe willing to give away your own well-being in order to get people to appreciate and like you more. And if you do that a lot, you wind up feeling like some kind of resentful in a way that your lot in life is that you wind up having to give yourself away all the time. But you're choosing to do that because that's what's working for you in some way or another. And I'm not trying to make anyone who's out there like that wrong. Please don't get me wrong. I'm just saying these are the circumstances that you find yourself in. And what kind of a world do you want to own? Do you want to be in? Is that it? Is that what you wish for? And you can have what you wish for by connecting to the truth of your in the moment experience, being grounded in what lights you up. And so that's a whole other conversation I'd like to talk about. When you begin this work of learning to connect, one of the first things that I do is I give clients this practice. So here's a technique that I'll give you that if you were paying me as a client, I would give this assignment to you. Notice what lights you up automatically, all by itself. Now, we all have something like that. And those of you that appreciate the science, what I'm talking about here are limbic state shifts. Limbic nerve part of your nervous system is the part of you that feels emotions, and when you go, oh wow, that's just the best thing ever. That's a different limbic experience than, oh man, that just didn't go so well. You can hear the voice, you can feel the shrugging, you can hear the lack of energy in the voice. All of those are representative of what the limbic state of a person or of you. One of the things I heard, which I really appreciate, is if you have a dog or you like dogs, I'm crazy about dogs, so you hear a lot about me from dogs. Dogs are a limbic system on legs, right? So there's like, oh, and they're so happy, or they're always so something, right? And so that's that equivalent in our nervous system is what we call a limbic system. And learning to know how that works in us is really important. One of the key ways you can learn to use that to your advantage is to notice what automatically, without thinking about it in any way, causes you to go, oh, wow, that is just so beautiful or so great. We all have something, right? So just think about, what is it? Is it faces of people that you love? Is it the sky? Is it nature? Is it an animal or animals in general? Pictures. I have a friend of mine who I really appreciate, a gifted intuitive, who's interestingly about fabric. She always relates to things through fabric. And so, she'll walk into a room and she'll notice the carpets and the drapes and the thing, or the texture of your clothes. That's the way that her system works. It's very interesting. She's very unique that way. But what is it that causes you to automatically stop you in your tracks and go, oh, wow, that's just amazing? Really, really dial that in, because those are pure moments of connectedness. And this is a starting point for learning how to connect to these moments in your life more fully and completely. So learning how to connect to these moments is crucial to beginning to be able to appreciate the conversations that we have with people and noticing those same kind of moments of beauty, connectedness that have the potential to light you up around other people. And when you have a nervous system, a brain, a habit, let's just call it a habit, of noticing beauty like that and letting yourself have it. See, that's the other thing about it, is practicing the gift of giving those things to yourself. So let me give you an example. I walk out on the porch, look up at the sky, notice the sky and go, oh, wow, it's so pretty today. Then rather than just move on and blow through to my car and move on to the next thing or whatever the next thing is, rather than just go, oh, that's nice, and moving on, noticing that I'm having one of those lit moments and go, oh, wow. Letting yourself be impacted by that, paying attention in a very refined way to how that feels in your body. Yeah, I can just feel being myself becoming more expansive. I can feel my whole system grounding a little bit, not making it a dramatic, oh my God, I'm having a transformational moment, but I am having a good one, right? So you don't want to make it drama. You don't want to dial in the drama. But you do want to let yourself have what is actually so. This is so important because when you do this, you are training your nervous system to be in touch with these transient, nourishing moments. And that is really the key. And another way we can flip this is really mindfulness training. It's interactive, connected mindfulness training. We're talking about being connected to your in the moment experience. And to use John Kabat-Zinn, who many people consider to be the main lead or one of the main leaders who brought mindfulness, created the mindfulness-based stress reduction system, which is kind of the gold standard for traditional mindfulness training, insight meditation centers, and that whole community and teaching methodology. Very powerful stuff. His definition is widely accepted, and I like it because it's a roadmap. It's paying attention in a particular way, on purpose. So you step outside, you see the sky, or whatever it is you're connecting to. I'm just using this as an example. And you notice that you're having one of these moments. So you on purpose say, I'm just going to stay here for a few more seconds. So that's box number one. Paying attention on purpose in the moment. It's happening in the moment. We're not thinking about the sunset you saw yesterday or where you're going to go tomorrow. It's happening right now. And non-judgmentally. Well, this one, this sky is kind of like the one yesterday, but it's a little bit darker. And I think the clouds are coming in. So that's thought, right? That's comparative thought. And there's nothing wrong with that. We have to have it. I would rather take this plane than that plane. I would rather buy this car than that car, or I'd rather, go for this direction or that direction. You have to have this comparative reasoning facility. But when we're doing this work, we're just going in the moment, on purpose, non-judgmentally. So it's a pure mindful moment. We're just staying in touch with the beauty of this moment for an extra few moments, and you on purpose kind of surrender a little bit to the experience and study it. How does this feel for me? What is this like for me? This is the very essence of learning to connect with your experience in such a way that it brings you more goodness in your life. Because what is life but a series of moments? And so if you can have more beautiful moments in your life, you improve the quality of your life. And you can, because they're happening all the time. We're just not allowing ourselves to be present for them because we're busy in our thought processes about this VUCA world, which I talked about earlier, this crazy, chaotic, overcomplicated world, which everything is trying to get our attention and keep it, because it's not, the world doesn't support people being the masters or having more intentionality in their lives. It's more about, hey, come and buy the thing, come and do the thing. You'll be okay if only you could have this. If you just worked harder, you would be that. It's all out in the future. It's all about what ifs and if onlys. And when you're in that world, you're going to feel disconnected from what's really powerfully and enabling for you, because you don't have those things. And so it's a world that isn't present right now. And if your satisfaction is tagged to things you don't have, you're by definition saying, I'm not happy, I'm not satisfied because I don't have those things. But the power of being mindful and present and connected to what's true for you is that you can feel grounded, complete, and in connection with all the beauty, trust, and love in the world without having much of anything at all. At the end of the day, when our lives are nearly over, you're not going to look back and go, how many cars did I accumulate? How much money do I have in the bank? That's not going to be important, because it's not going to matter where you're going, right? What will matter, what can matter to you, and there's no gateway towards, is what's happening for you now. How much love will you allow? How much connection can you facilitate, create? How much engagement with others and yourself and the world can you be present for? That's really the heart of having a life that is meaningful and powerful, and that you want to get up every day for and go, yes, this is why I'm here, and what moves me to be present for people and myself and the world, is being in connection with what John Eisman at the Meta Institute in Portland, which closed a few years ago, would call the absolutes, beauty, peace, justice, love, all of those kinds of things. That's what you're connected to. When that's what you're connected to, and you speak and walk through the world from that place, well, the world it's a rich life. And that is what I personally wish for everyone. Just imagine the world that we create, the relationships, organizations, the businesses that we would build if that were true for people, if that's what we were connected to. And so that's really the heart of, the connected conversation. We'll be back in a minute. Thank you. Hello, and welcome back to the Connected Conversation. I'm your host, Brett Hill, a mindful somatic coach and coach trainer, and we're talking about connecting to people, to your life, to your world, in ways that help you be more satisfied, authentic, deeply nourished with your everyday life, and the kinds of things that you can do to help you have that be an everyday experience. And there are specific things that you can do to bring you into more connection with things that are very deeply nourishing and grounding for you. Excuse me. Some of the key things that I wanted to mention before we are finished with this pilot episode, which I'm so psyched about, and thank you so much for listening. Oh, and by the way, you can browse to theconnectedconversation.com, which is a website specifically about this show and about my work. And you can find there a place to sign up for newsletter, news, and events. And I do have a community that we're building around the show and around connected conversations and mindful communications. And sign up there for that, for the newsletter there. And I'll invite you to the private news group, so you can be on the Facebook news group, and we can connect there as well and interact and have a good time. So you're more than welcome to join us there. Just go to theconnectedconversation.com and sign up on the form there that says, that invites you to do so. You can also find out about my coaching work, as well as the Mindful Coach Method, which is the coaching 8-week coaching course that I have to help coaches learn how to facilitate in somatic, mindful ways in their work with other people, to do the kind of stuff that we're talking about here one-on-one with folks, because it takes some specialized training. It's not your everyday coach training. But so you can go there and learn more about that if you're someone who considers themselves a coach or a healer or a facilitator or a counselor or a therapist, anything I call a helping professional, kind of loosely in those terms. who wants to bring more mindfulness and somatic skills into their session work. Really super powerful stuff. And it's not the same as if you just go get mindfulness training, which I totally would like for everyone to go do. But that in and of itself, we go way beyond that. This is facilitating clients' processes. And along those lines, I wanted to talk a little bit more around something that you can do to help you connect with a broad range of folk. This is a really powerful notion and practice. And it begins with thinking about our circumstances as human beings, right? And what I mean by that is, like, very frequently you'll hear people say, well, you don't know me, you don't know my circumstances, and you don't understand anything about my world or my life. And, there's some truth to it, in the sense that we don't know what it's like to be another person, right? We don't know in fullness and particularly this is really important in terms of racial justice and situations where we're dealing with, underprivileged or disempowered communities. It's really important to know that you don't know what those experiences are like. Now, that said, I want to say that there is a lot of common ground between you and me and everyone on the planet, and we should not discard that out of respect for the differences. And I want to just, I totally want to honor and embrace the fullness of those difficulties and distances. I'm not in any way trying to undermine the value of that respect for those very significant differences. At the same time, I don't want to live in the world where I feel like that I just am ignorant about anyone. And really, if you go back to what we have in common, what that does is help me create bridges to people who might actually be perceived as really different from me. Here's what I mean. Consider this. Consider that as human beings, we are born, we're unique in the sense that babies are totally dependent. From the time you're born till, the time you're like 4, 5, 6, 7, you have to have somebody around to take care of you all the time. If obviously an infant is completely dependent. And this is true for all mammals, but it's true for humans more than any other species. It's a much longer period of vulnerability. And so what that means is, as a human, because we're all human, we're all listening, and most of us are adults, right? We all know what it means to be helpless. We all know what it means to depend entirely on other people to take care of us. That without that, we probably wouldn't have made it to adulthood. And when you start with an experience like that, when you start with, we all know what it means to be sick. We all know what it means to have celebrations in our lives, to have conquered or be recognized. We all know what it's like to lose things that we value. We all know what it means to have things come to us that we prize. We all know what it means to have connections to things that mean things to us. And we all know what it means to lose those things. When you start interacting with people from that place, then suddenly my possibility of being in connection with someone becomes much more empowered, because I'm already speaking from a place where we have a lot of common ground. And whenever I'm in touch with that, when that's what I'm connected to when I'm speaking, it changes the conversation. And it changes the conversation in very powerful ways. And so that's the kind of thing that we're going to be talking about in the show, The Connected Conversation, for the next many, many weeks. So I hope that you'll come back and join us every 2 weeks in the Connected Conversation as we explore how to create deep, meaningful connections in our lives with other people and the world and your life itself, because I truly believe that this is the way that we can change and transform our lives and our world. So I'm very happy that you're here. Check out theconnectedconversation.com, sign up for the newsletter, join the private Facebook group, and I will be having some additional work as well, in events that are specific to this audience. So I hope that you'll join us. We really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. This is Brett Hill with The Connected Conversation.
Thank you for joining us today on The Connected Conversation with Brett Hill on TransformationTalkRadio.com. Tune in next time to experience the power of mindful communication to bring deeper meaning to your life, work, and the world. Brett is here to help you step into a life that works for you, to help you flourish and give voice to your natural creativity and purpose. See you here next time on The Connected Conversation to learn how to enjoy the experience of your moment-to-moment life. For more information, visit theconnectedconversation.com.